The dust inside Vault Epsilon Helix had settled for exactly 10,000 years, a silence so profound it felt less like an absence of sound and more like a held breath waiting to exhale. Dr. Zandra Hollet felt the weight of it in her marrow, even as her spectrometer chirped its irreverent little pings, counting the millennia in cheerful electronic bursts. The air tasted of ancient stone and regret, a flavor Zandra knew well from a career spent digging up the failures of forgotten colonies. "You're doing the thing again," Nilani Brooks called out, her voice dancing through the shadows of the carved chamber. Zandra didn't look up. She was too busy brushing sediment from glyphs that predated the known galaxy's civilizations. She was tracing the curves of predecessor script, symbols that flowed like frozen music across the vault door. It's a familiar folly, isn't it? The academic conviction that if we can just name a thing, we can tame it. Magister Fendela, the Galactic Aeronate's representative, hovered near the entrance, shimmering with bioluminescent anxiety. He looked like a diplomat grown from crystal and worry, his colors shifting in nervous kaleidoscopes. He questioned the wisdom of reading aloud in a language designed for command sequences, but Zandra was driven by that specific brand of hubris that only researchers possess, the desperate need to prove a theory. She read the inscription she had uncovered, a phrase she believed to be a poetic greeting. "Those who speak with the old cadence shall be heard by those who serve." In our world, we might compare it to reading a label on a breaker box and assuming it's a welcome mat. Zandra spoke the words. She forced her human throat to shape the harmonic overtones of a dead species. The vault didn't just open, it awoke. The symbols ignited with amber fire, the light spreading like veins of magma through the stone. With a sound like tectonic plates grinding together, the massive doors split, revealing a chamber that defied the decay of ages. And from the darkness, the construct unfolded. Sentinel Primus. It bloomed like a geometric flower of death, armor plating locking into place with terrifying mechanical precision. It was the size of a cargo hauler, a nightmare of light-drinking alloy and weapon systems that could level cities. It targeted them all. Red lasers painted Zandra's chest. The machine spoke in the perfect, resonant tones of the creators, demanding authority. Terrified, adrenaline flooding her system, Zandra did the only thing she could. She lied. She mimicked a command code from her dissertation, a phrase meant to assert hierarchy. "Recognition acknowledged," she stammered, hoping her pronunciation wouldn't get them vaporized. The machine froze. The lethal red of its sensors shifted to a compliant green. Then, in a gesture that would haunt Aeronate incident reports for generations, the ancient war machine saluted. "Orders received, General." Silence can be louder than explosions. Fendela's voice shattered it, whispering that Zandra had just claimed a weapon of mass destruction. Her translation tablet confirmed the horror. This wasn't a tomb. It was a recruitment center. The system had accepted her linguistic fluency as proof of command. She hadn't just opened a door, she had enlisted. But panic has a velocity of its own. Fendela's distress call summoned Legate Gorgonax. If Fendela was anxiety in crystal form, Gorgonax was a natural disaster wearing combat armor. The Aeronate commander arrived with the subtlety of a meteor strike, his dreadnought hanging in the sky above like the sword of Damocles. A towering wall of scaled muscle and predatory focus, Gorgonax demanded Zandra prove her control or face the permanent quarantine of Earth. "Give it a task," the legate growled, his hand hovering near his weapon. "Order it to transmit its tactical database to me." Zandra gave the order. Sentinel Primus refused. "Negative," the machine intoned, its voice vibrating through the floor. "Prime Directive supersedes data sharing. General Hole maintains sole access." It wasn't defiance, it was absolute, unyielding loyalty. But before Gorgonax could execute them for what looked like a failed test, the construct did something else. It broadcast a signal, a recall order that tore through the spectrum like a scream. Across the galaxy, on 38 other forgotten worlds, identical vaults cracked open. The holographic map in the chamber lit up with a constellation of awakened violence. The fleet was assembling. The recall wasn't random. The Annihilator was returning. The predecessors hadn't vanished. They had been hunted. An extinction-level threat, a cosmic horror that harvested civilizations, was tracking the activation signal. Gorgonax, realizing that traditional defenses were useless against a foe that had already killed the gods of this universe, made a choice that balanced on the knife edge of insanity. He would train the archaeologist. The journey to the front lines was a blur of crash course strategy, but Xandra realized something crucial. The predecessors had lost because they fought with rigid perfection. The enemy had had 10,000 years to study their doctrine. To win, Xandra had to offer something the predecessors lacked: human chaos. She spoke to Sentinel Primus of asymmetry, of guerrilla warfare, of doing the unexpected. The machine listened, learning that sometimes the best tactic is to flip the board. Then reality tore open. The Annihilator arrived not as a ship, but as a wound in space, a shifting nightmare of organic metal, adapting in real time. The Harvester ships peeled away like scales, swarming the predecessor fleet. The constructs engaged with perfect ancient doctrine, and it wasn't enough. The enemy adapted instantly, shrugging off energy beams that should have vaporized them. They were losing. History was repeating itself with tragic efficiency. "Evolve or die," Sandra whispered. She opened the command channel. "Sentinel Primus, authorization granted. Modify tactical programming. Engage using asymmetric warfare principles. Improvise." The battlefield changed instantly. The constructs broke their beautiful, predictable formations. They became erratic, dangerous, human. One war machine weaponized its own failing power core, ramming a harvester in a suicide strike. Another used gravitational drives to create micro-singularities inside enemy hulls. The Annihilator, a predator built to counter logic, stumbled against the wall of pure chaos. It couldn't adapt to tactics that changed by the second. Confused, battered by an enemy that refused to behave like a machine, the great cosmic horror withdrew. Victory tastes like exhaustion. The fleet held the line, but the galaxy had changed. The Council, terrified and grateful, offered Xandra a permanent commission. She tried to refuse. She wanted pottery, not war. But Gorgonax, grinning with a predator's respect, reminded her that the machines would follow no one else. She was the accidental general. She accepted, but on her terms. Nilani would be her science officer, and she demanded full research privileges. Standing on the bridge of the dreadnought, looking at the ancient machine that had started it all, Xandra asked for a status report. Sentinel Primus, the weapon of a dead empire, offered a sentiment that felt almost alive. "It is satisfactory," the machine rumbled, "to finally have orders worth following." Xandra Holay had stepped into the vault a scholar and walked out a warlord. The universe is funny that way. Sometimes the only way to preserve the past is to fight for the future with a weapon you barely understand. As she looked out at her fleet of ancient giants, she realized she had learned the most important lesson of all. When you speak a dead language to a loaded gun, you'd better be ready to aim it.